You didn't even have it on here.
I'm good, how are you?
Eugene. Fine. Not too bad. Sitting next to the door, I'm not gonna stay long.
Why? I'm gonna make sure you go read.
We are streaming live right now
Live from where? With California?
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Live from YouTube.
Why do it though,
I mean, if that's the case, I want a bunch of company that does the makeup and stuff. Last time they start picture, I look like a range person.
You're gonna focus when you recuse yourself.
Last time they just let me recuse myself, oh, last time.
Yes, I have.
It's better than the alternative.
Yes.
No, we don't like Stay with it. Thank you. Not a real
Oh, hi, I'm Martha Taylor from Blake.
Denise is smarter than the outside vice chair. You're representing Sheila Lewandowski. Chocolate factory. It's me. But I've been on the committee with her. This will be my 10th year. Nice to see you. I know, we've met. Nice to see you. I think we had one of the things that go along with the swearing in. And you do a lot of presentations. Which lives that one?
Bayside's on this little next.
What by third, fourth, fifth, and sixth? I'm funny or what?
I'm here for Denise.
I'm funny. Making people laugh.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I know. How you doing? Don't come on stage.
Oh, yeah.
Did the last time. Name things.
I'm sorry, I'm just checking you off, I apologize. Yeah, just so I know when I can start and when I can't. Huh? Okay, all right. You know, I use that a lot today, so it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Hold on, wait. I'm sitting next to her, and I'm not even allowed at the table.
I'm having fun with you.
Chocolate and alcohol. And beer. It's like a lot of wine. Whiskey, beer, and coke. That's what they make up for the gallons.
Better with chocolate. Better with
Thank you. It's already been there.
We'll go back, we'll go back for
Thank you very much.
It's funny because it's this afternoon that I said, it clicked in my brain and I said, I saw that and I saw you thinking it's like, oh, my boy was coming up there. I'm like, you know, and then my old man was on strong. I mean, he wanted you and he appreciated it. Yes, I spoke to him that it was still like the old house. Yeah, exactly. The one who had like a it was a beautiful
Recovering not as fast as I thought it I'm home. Yeah, I had surgery 2 months ago. I'm back. And you got
I always have to put it to this day. For it. I know what jacket it's right there was.
Hello. All right. Good evening, everyone. We'll start the Borough Board tonight in accordance to Section 13 of the Borough Board bylaws. The following vice chairs have been designated by their respective chair to serve as an alternate, at the meeting. February 27, 2018, second vice chair Sheila Lewandowski for Chairwoman Denise Keane Smith for Community Board 2. Second vice chair Steve Goldberg for Chairman Joe Hennessy, Board 6. Second vice chair Verdell Boncourt for Chairman Clive Williams on Board 3. I accept a motion to approve this designation. Betty Brown, motion, second. Linear carry, all in favor say aye. All opposed?
None.
All right. Is that the only housekeeping? Yes? Hi, everyone. It's good to see everyone again. It's that time of year again. Pursuant to Section 241 of the New York City Charter, the Borough Board must submit its expense and capital budget priorities for fiscal year 2019 to the Mayor, the City Council, and the Director of Management and Budget for by March 13, 2018. This document is a compilation of information received from the Community Board's priority list. Our Queensborough Board hearing was held on Monday, February 5th, 2018, and other data. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Community Board chairs who joined me and others throughout the day on the budget hearing panel. Thanks for hanging with us and hearing the testimony of the groups throughout the borough. And the Queens Council delegation who co-chair this important hearing each year. Before voting, Richard Lee, my budget director.
Hi.
So there you are. I thought he left me hanging. You do it. We'll briefly touch upon the highlights of the document. If after discussion there are any recommended changes, they can be included as additional or modified items. I think that, as everyone here, I think, sees, we do try to use the Community Board's recommendations, at least in our budget, every year. So in addition to what is going to be talked about, and in addition to your Community Board's recommendations, I would also appreciate while we do our budget that you let us know any specific projects that you know the board is extremely interested in and have taken on. So thank you.
Point of order.
Yes.
I have to close. I work for the fire department, and we recluse myself on voting on the fire department issues.
So noted. Thank you.
And if you would know for the record, Department of Education, I know for once, and I'll be recusing on that.
Okay, Department of Education, we talked about how they need more money though. So. Okay, Richard Lee, please.
All right.
take it away.
Can everyone hear me? Do I need a microphone? We're good? Great. So, quickly, the fiscal year 2019 preliminary budget outlines $88.67 billion in spending and revenue. The tax revenue is about $60 billion of that. General reserve forecast $6 million in OTPS, and I'm sorry, $12.5 million in OTPS and 4.8 in OTPS and PS, for a total of 17.4. So it's about the same for every single community board combined. We do look at the total spending per capita for each of our community boards, per borough, and we do see that on a per capita basis, Queens community boards do receive the least for the number of people that we have to serve. And so our recommendation every year is to increase funding support of the Queens community boards and to fund as many of the top priorities that each community board submits as part of the register. We included the top 10 expense and capital requests on the community board register as part of our recommendations, and you can see it at the end of the community board section in the book that you have. Oh, one quick note, the books, they are pending approval, like we said earlier, depending on the vote, and it doesn't say pending approval on all the pages because of printing error, but it is all pending approval. Department for the Aging. So we are expecting right now that there will be $21.67 million less than the adopted budget of last year. A lot of these are coming from the senior centers, but a good portion of this is from the City Council's addition in the adopted budget. So I'd say about three quarters of that is really coming from the City Council side that they haven't yet put in for their initiatives and member item funding. But other services that we do see are expected not to be at the same levels of the adopted budget. Particularly, we do see elder abuse, which usually gets restored by the council, and NORCs, which also normally gets restored by the council, and case management, which also gets normally restored by the council. But as of right now, we are seeing that they are funded less than the adopted budget. Again, senior centers largely coming from member items and the city council initiatives that have not yet been put in. And so our recommendation is for an increase in funds for senior centers. We should note that the RFP for senior centers have not been released for a number of years, and they're still operating year to year. And so we are recommending that they reissue the RFP so that we could formally increase funding across the board for some of our senior centers in the borough. The second item is a restoration that gets made by the city council. Historically, the 5 borough presidents received about $4.1 million for senior centers, direct senior center funding. In 2013, the items were baselined in, and so 1.13 million of that usually gets restored by the city council, so we're asking for the city council to restore those items. And other recommendations include restoration of NORC services, which is critically important to our borough, expansion of home delivered meals to be more culturally sensitive, to include organizations that provide culturally sensitive meals, and a continuation of the city council initiatives.
So everyone's clear, it's $1.3 million for the council members for all the boroughs.
Yeah.
It's not just for this borough.
Yep.
It's for all the boroughs.
It's for all the boroughs, but we do get the larger share of that because of a funding formula that was determined many years ago.
Yes.
On the Department of Education, we are currently expecting $600 million more in each PS and OTPS for DOE for a total of $1.267 billion. Last year, we started looking at how does school utilization look for our borough and across the borough. And so we updated those numbers, and as of right now, currently, we are still the most overcrowded schools districts in the entire borough. We have elementary schools at 116% capacity, 92% for middle schools, which is still under 100, so we have a little room, but we are still the highest. We're the highest for high school at 113, and IS and HS combos were at just over 100%, for a total of 108.11% over capacity. So we are 8.11% over capacity. So in terms of numerically, what does that mean? It means that, so we saw the percentages, but it doesn't really mean much without the numbers. So right now, in elementary schools, we are over capacity by 15,768 students, compared to a borough like Manhattan, who was 3,725 under. So they have room for 3,725 more students, but we are currently over in our elementary schools by 15,768. Same goes for our high schools. We're the highest right now. We're over by 8566. Our IS, HS combos, we're over 129. Our PSIs are over by 1,440. So overall, we are over capacity by 22,151 seats for all of our students at all grades, kindergarten through 12. Compared to the other boroughs who are five-digit deficits of number of seats. Staten Island is slightly over too, but we are 22,151 students over. Just to note that District 24 is the second most overcrowded district with 7,421 students over. 25 is the third most overcrowded with 6,530 students over. And 26 is the fourth most overcrowded. So the 3 of the top 4 most overcrowded districts are 24, 25, and 26. So,
Just one, for education, for especially council members, but sort of the entire borough board knows, we call it feeling the squeeze.
feeling the squeeze.
Means that in Queens, we are really squeezed out of the schools. And just to make sure that everyone is on the same page, we have 22,000 less seats available when we do children in this district.
That's as of right now.
As of right now, if you look at the utilization rates of how many kids should be in a class, how many kids should be in a school, we have 22,000 more than we have room for.
And
in
we,
Manhattan, they have 20,000 less.
yep. Brooklyn has nearly 40,000 less. And so we consider this, right? We looked at 20,000 less, 11,000 less, 39.8 thousand less. And we're looking at, this is the new 5-year capital plan that came out in November. We're expecting the new one to come out in February, end of February now, so I guess March. These are the number of seats that the DO has identified as needed, and these are the number of seats that are now funded. So they didn't get calculated into the utilization before, but these are the ones that are going to be built. So we have 18,632 in the pipeline right now, quote unquote funded over the 5-year capital plan. They're not existing yet, but we do have those seats funded for right now, as do the other boroughs who also have seats funded for. So our big thing is, we have the highest need, so we need to kind of prioritize a little bit better for the areas that actually need a lot of these seats.
So Richard, just to be clear, these are DOE's numbers.
These are school construction
These are not our
operating numbers.
numbers, these are not made from our schools, these are actually the Department of Education's numbers, where it shows that we need 35,259 more seats. And we
Yep.
are funded for 18,632. So just to get to 100%.
Yep.
Sheila, you had a question?
Just a quick question. The elementary school seats, that includes pre-K, pre-K?
It usually, we try to, so it was hard to kind of discern the information. So we try to include only kindergarten through 12th grade, because the funding models and the utilization models for pre-K is different, because some are center-based and some are school-based. So for now, we discounted that in the utilization. In the funding portion next that's coming up, we have to discount D75 schools because their funding model is significantly different. So in the next section, D75 and pre-K was also not included, just FYI.
Thank you.
So we also, that was on the utilization side. So this is the spending side, so how much each school gets first for each student. So we calculated on a per pupil spending basis. Essentially, how much are we spending per student in each borough? So this is the total number of spending. This is the total number of students. So the asterisk is for non-inclusion of these 75 students. And right now we're spending the least per student in our borough, in Queens. So it's $8,353 per student that we spend compared to some of the other boroughs that you see listed. This is the citywide average, so it includes Queens in this number. But we are well below the citywide average, as well as the other boroughs as of right now. Just to give you a quick insight, District 26 is the lowest per pupil spending in the entire city. 28 is the second lowest, and 24 is the fourth lowest. So 3 out of the 4 lowest spending comes directly in Queens. So 26, 28, 24. So this next section, we broke it down by grade level. So essentially, types of schools, how much we're spending across the board. So for K through 6 schools, this is how much you're spending per student, which is the lowest compared to the 10,000s that we see in other boroughs. 8,600 for K through 9 schools. 5 to 9 schools are spending 7,805 per student compared to slide before. So this is the total school budget of how much we're spending. The next slide over here, just so you know that the school's budget is comprised of all these different funding that comes into the school, like Title I, Fair Student Funding, and Fair Student Funding is the largest share of that. So this slide is indicating just Fair Student Funding, how much we're getting per school.
I just want to say something.
Yes.
I just want to thank you, Rich, thank you, Borough President. This is a fight that I have been gently carrying to the Department of Education. Many of the schools in my district do not receive 100% of Fair Student Funding. They don't come anywhere near.
Nope.
The minimum is 87%, and a lot of my schools, which happen to be some of the best schools in the city, are at 87. I do credit the mayor because he has brought it up from 82%. They promised us that it was going to go to 90% last year, but something got lost in translation, and it's still at 87. So it's something we'll continue to fight for.
There's a lot of schools in your district also that don't receive any Title I funding either.
Most of them.
Yeah, so that kind of is like a double hit, in which they're getting the least amount of Fair Student Funding dollars and the least amount of Title I, which is the second highest source of funding that the schools get. Just FYI, we didn't mention it in the PowerPoint, but in our books we do mention that DOE is now taking over childcare and Head Start. Not the vouchers, but the center-based sites. So the increase that you saw in DOE, a lot of it came from the porting of childcare from ACS into DOE. We don't know the exact fiscal impact right now because it's currently planned, and we don't know exactly how many sites and all of that, how that's going to work out yet. So I think we're going to explore that more come the executive and adopt it. But we do note that if they are keeping the same amount of sites, that we do increase childcare Head Start sites for Queens because we did historically receive the least number of seats and the least number of sites for early learning. So DYCD, we do see a reduction of $123.5 million, largely coming from the Community Development Program, which is City Council funding that comes in at adoption. But we do see this reduction over here, which is the out-of-school time now known as Sonic and Compass. It does not include summer programs, Sonic summer programs, so that is a large chunk of what is being left out right now from the budget. The summer programs for middle school students is not there. And summer youth employment, which historically receives wide range of funding from different sources, is currently below the adopted budget levels. This is a quick summary of all of our Compass and Beacon sites. And so we do receive about 124 Compass sites and 21 Beacon sites. So our recommendations include increasing funding to cover more Compass sites, to include the Sonic summer programs, to restore the summer youth employment, and increase funding for staff tasked with executing discretionary funding contracts. We tried to find the exact number going through the departmental estimates of how many staff people actually work on the contracting, because a lot of organizations always come to us and say, oh, we contracted with DYCD, it's taking months and months and months and months, and sometimes even years to execute contracts. So we are asking that additional staff do be allocated to execute some of these contracts. And the restoration of adult literacy, which we did see in the previous pages. So HPD, we are expecting $274.5 million less than the adopted budget. This is largely because of the lack, it doesn't include CDBG federal funding that comes in for housing development. But we are expecting some of this to go up. At the same time, with the new tax plan that came out, we are expecting a dip in low-income housing tax credit investments. But we don't know exactly how that's going to pan out, so I think we have to just keep an eye on this, on affordable housing development over the next couple of months to see how it works out. Just a quick overview. So this is the Housing New York plan that came out, that the mayor introduced when he first came to office. So this is the breakdown of how many units built in new construction and preserved affordable housing units over the last 4 years. As you can see, new construction, Queens is at 2849, which is significantly less, and 5,740, which is significantly less than the other boroughs that we see, for a total of 8,589 units that's been built over the last 4 years, which represents just shy of 10% of all the total affordable housing units that was built. Compared to last year, we were at 1,706, so we got a bump of about 7,000 units, but in the same time period, Manhattan got about 14,000 units of housing, Brooklyn got about 12,000 units, Bronx got about 11,000. So we are kind of behind on the need in terms of preservation and construction of affordable housing right now compared to other boroughs. And this is also compounded by the fact that during the new housing plan under the Bloomberg administration, the housing plan under the Bloomberg administration also only allocated about 10% of all the units that was built for Queens. So it's compounded twice under two different under two different housing plans where we're not receiving affordable housing when we really, really need it the most, considering that we have some of the most overcrowded community boards in the entire city. Yes?
Where do you have senior housing in these reports?
So
We're aging out. In 2030, we're predicted to be probably the most aged borough.
Yep. So one of the things that we can't kind of like take apart in terms of data is like these nodes all represent affordable housing built.
Right.
And so you can see giant swaths of blue over here and a couple over here. So Queens is definitely short. What we can't kind of break down apart right now is which one of these has been set aside for senior housing, which is set aside for like regular traditional affordable housing, which has been set aside for like supportive housing. That we can't really break down right now. We're hoping to kind of delve a little bit deeper into some data once we are able to obtain it.
This would help us to advocate where that funding is.
Absolutely.
For the senior housing.
It would also be a good borough board item, I think, right? To have HPD come in and talk about where senior housing is now, where the most needs are, and if there's any in the sites for planning. Right?
I think, yeah, it would definitely be helpful if we
Yeah.
could get that data. It's hard to obtain some of this data from the different agencies. And so we use as much public data as possible, and trying to break down public data isn't always the easiest thing. But we would definitely want to explore kind of a breakdown of all the housing, especially senior housing. So recommendations include creating and preserving more affordable housing. Again, still continue to increase funding for foreclosure services, which is still an issue in many parts of the borough. Continue housing support services for areas impacted by Hurricane Sandy, which right now is largely not included as part of the block grants that are coming in for the federal government. We expect them to be included, but it's currently not included, and to continue city council initiatives. Cultural affairs, we're expecting about $44.9 million less than the adopted budget. We should note, this is an exercise that we go through every year to really highlight how much funding each of our cultural institution groups get. So there's a total that we have right now. They're going to be funded about $171,000 less as a whole in their programmatic funding that they receive from the city. So this is looking at a holistic view of how much we get per average we get per institution. So you can see for our 8 SIGs, we get significantly less than some of the other boroughs. We should note that in fiscal year 17, the mayor did increase funding for all the SIGs across the board by $4.5 million. The largest 15 SIGs got a bump of about 6%, and the smaller 18 got a bump of about 12%. I mean, that sounds great on paper, but 7 of our 8 are in the smaller category, and it was a 12% bump, yes, but then they're working off a much smaller base, right? So it'll be something like even though it's 12%, it'll be like a $55,000 bump for like PS1, while for like the Metropolitan Museum of Art, who really relies less on public funding, for their 6%, they'll be getting like $650,000, right? So we have to kind of take that into account, that even though there was an increase, that is a very small increase compared to like the need that our SIGs require. And on top of that, back in 2008, there was a citywide cut, about 15% average for all of the SIGs and cultural institutions combined, just all of them. And that baseline was never restored, so they've been operating with significantly less dollars for the last couple of years, when it was expected that once the economy picked up, that these items would be restored, but they still haven't in the last 10 years. And so our recommendation is to increase funding for our organizations in Queens and to continue the city council initiatives that we always support. Department of Parks, I'm sorry, it's cut off.
So can I just make a suggestion, just so everybody's aware? Remember that our tourism numbers have grown over the years exponentially in Queens. People are in fact coming to the city of New York. to see the cultural institution
Normally make, and we want to continue this year, is increasing number of park enforcement patrol officers, increasing funding for street tree pruning, which I know is a large issue, increase capital funding to support our parks, provide funding for the restoration of the New York State Pavilion, and to continue the City Council initiatives that are listed in the book. But if you do want to see it, because it is cut off, it is on page 103, is the park section in the book. The library is going to be funded, as of right now, compared to the adopted of last year, pretty much exactly the same amount. One thing we do note is that of all the library systems, the 3 library systems, we only have, well, it says 3%, but there's only 2 libraries that we have open 7 days a week. And our one recommendation is that the administration explore libraries that could be open 7 days a week, so we could expand some of our services and to increase capital support for the public libraries. NYPD, personnel services is expected to increase 34.5, OTPS, but a deficit of about 26.5. Again, this is largely from federal and state funds that's not expected to be realized yet. These are the safety numbers that we list every year coming for Queens North and Queens South. Just to let you know, Queens North saw a reduction of about 726 incidents in the last year, and Queens South in the same year saw a reduction of about 1,115. And our recommendations this year is to expedite the creation of the Flushing Meadows Corner Park substation. So this was already funded last year for $2 million, and we are hoping that the NYPD will expedite the creation of this. We do know a certificate of receipt was created, and they should be starting procurement soon, but we are hoping that it gets expedited. Ensuring that the 116th precinct is built out in a timely fashion. Allocating funds to relocate or renovate the 110th precinct, which I know is a really big issue. And to provide additional neighborhood for NCOs, essentially. I think right now the funding provides 2 per police precinct. Yes?
Today we had a meeting at Queens North, and we were advised that the rollout for neighborhood community officer program would increase personnel dramatically. For instance, the 114 is currently the first one, going from 190 to 250 officers. So, and they expect by the end of the year all of Queens North to roll out in neighborhood community officers. So have we accounted for all of that additional personnel in the budget?
So so the increase that we saw over here is largely almost exclusively from personnel. What we couldn't separate was which employee increases were coming from the NCOs and which weren't. There are specific ones that we can tell. It said on the Department of Estimates, it'll say like counterterrorism team, and it'll give you a personnel number next to it. But I don't think the NCO officers have a specific city title that we can associate and kind of break apart off of that. So we're hoping that we can, by the time the executive budget comes out, when we make our executive budget recommendations, that we will kind of explore the personnel, the PS service increase, and to figure out what the exact increases are and if they've been accounted for coming forward.
I think you have to dig into it because it could be quite extensive.
It could be quite extensive, yes.
The other thing we keep bringing up this Flushing Meadows precinct. I think it would be more economical and more efficient to relocate Queens North into Flushing Meadows and have an expanded force there that we cover the special events that go on at City Field and the park. And you don't have to build another precinct. And I think the 112 Queens North is probably in a rented facility, which we could probably do better with the downsizing and the smaller unit in a more efficient place.
So just FYI, in the capital budget, the NYPD allocates significant dollars to renovate pretty much all of our, save for I think like 2 of our precincts. The sub-precinct that we are looking at right now is not a fully built out structure. Rather, it's a mobile command center that we're hoping that will be fully equipped with all the materials and equipment that they need, and that officers will be specifically assigned to that substation. So we don't want to really build out anything, but really have a mobile unit that can answer quickly and be moved around if necessary.
Thank you.
Yes.
We were told at the meeting this morning at Queens North that CB 11 is going to be receiving new officers on April 11th. I don't know how many they didn't say, but just for the record.
With the increase of the offices that we're getting, they're not increasing the building size. And that's a bigger problem, okay? And we've always I mean, we have to have locker rooms for them for changing and stuff like that. We have to have spaces for the new cars that are coming in, because they are bringing, if we have 50 people putting the 109, we have 50 new cars put in with the 109. So unless we're going to do a stacking system somewhere, it's time that the police department's better thinking in their budget that they better start looking either to start decking their buildings and stuff like that to accommodate the additional police vehicles that are coming in, as well as the, you know, the services for the showers, stalls, whatever changing rooms they need for the offices.
Yeah, that's a good point. We should get a rundown of how they're going to accommodate the neighborhoods as they increase the size of the officers. I mean, not that we don't want them to increase the size of the officers,
Right.
but we need to have a rundown on how the community is affected.
We'll look into that.
Betty?
Yeah, follow up on what Chief said. You know, the precinct that covers our board area has already gone to the NCOs, and that is definitely a problem for the blocks surrounding the precinct. You know, the number of vehicles, and we appreciate every vehicle they're providing and what with manpower, but concomitant with the increases in vehicles and manpower, there have to be additional spaces. You know, it may be wise for the police department to start looking at, you know, satellite spots to provide that type of thing within the sectors.
So maybe we should ask the administration of this department, not precincts, but 1PP, what their borough-wide plan is. And they should have a plan, right? That how many officers are going into each precinct extra? How many cars will that involve? They must have some sort of records of that, how many spots they've available, and whether or not we can be helpful in finding satellite parking.
Okay. We'll reach out.
Ready?
Yeah, not particularly budget related, but could be future years. You know, we probably need to start looking at the police department figures in terms of those precincts that have gone to the NCO system compared to the precincts that have not, so that we get a set of baseline numbers of what the impact actually is.
Yeah, we'll definitely explore that.
Thank you.
Fire department is a overall reduction of about $26.66 million. A lot of it is coming from federal funds that have not yet been accounted for. Just a quick, we also provided in the book just an overall summary of the change in fire incidents by the different types and medical emergencies. So we did see a reduction overall. Same thing with the serious incidents summary. Our recommendations that we make is to reopen the engine 261 in Western Queens and to create another Rockaway Peninsula ladder company, because our understanding is that the ones that we have there is not sufficient to cover. I'm sorry? Oh, we actually looked into the request that came out in Community Board 2. We have not yet decided. So we reached out to
We're reviewing the
FDNY.
request about Roosevelt Island. We
Yeah.
are a little concerned about the response time on Roosevelt Island, and the vehicles apparently are coming from Queens
Yeah.
onto the island.
the one follow-up that we got from FDNY is that there's already a special operations unit and house there that responds immediately to the fires there. So we couldn't discern yet how much of Queens's personnel is being shifted to Roosevelt Island and how many times it really happens. So we're holding off on that right now until we find a little bit more information for the executive.
I believe what happened was when that building was given to the New York City Fire Department of the city, they were supposed to put a fire unit up there. And they did. They put a fire unit, not a fire engine and not a fire truck. So that is the problem of how they got around that. So you're absolutely right. There should be guaranteed either an engine or a truck over there to do extinguishing. What's over there is rescue support services. And I don't believe that is, they can put fires out because they don't have ladders, nor do they have hoses. They have a lot of other stuff, but they don't have that stuff.
I mean, the response we directly got from FDNY was that
Yeah.
this special operations unit
that they should have expanded out to, and they haven't done it over quite a number of years. We now have correction looking to get in over there, and the last thing I need is a correction facility to be relocated into the district over there. I need them to expand Fort Cotton, put a fire department in the EMS units, which they should have been doing over the last 17 years.
After 9/11, they restored the East Channel as navigable, meaning that the bridge then would go up and down for side shifts. So this is another argument for having a fire apparatus on the island in the event the bridge is in an up position. You can't come from Queens. So you need to look into that. Is it still, have they still declared the East Channel as the navigable waterway to keep anything away from Manhattan? Which means then the bridge would intermittently open and close, and if there's a fire, when the bridge is open, you can kiss your butt goodbye.
Very interesting. I
Means
didn't know
that
that.
the most technical.
I learn new things every day. We're almost at the end, so I'm gonna quickly go to Department of Sanitation. So there's a budget summary and increase that we're seeing for the department. We do list the acceptable streets survey that sanitation releases every year, and the overview of personnel that they have. And our recommendation is increased cleanup of major commercial corridors and increased collection throughout the borough. So that's what we have on PowerPoint. We do have additional sections that we didn't go over in the PowerPoint itself, but we do have it in the book if you have any other questions. And if you also have questions about the education section, we have already broken down a lot of the data by school district. So if council members or community board members are interested in the numbers for their schools or their school districts, we actually have that already all mined out, data mined.
Can you help me please? You know, Richard and his team are just amazing. He put together a lot of these numbers. They put together a lot of the numbers on their own under Richard's leadership, especially the education numbers, the housing numbers. You know, the one that I pointed out was actually DOE, but we actually analyzed them. Richard does a great job every single year. I just want to thank him.
And we got new help this year, so Carolina just joined the team.
Carolina, yay! And in the back, just so all the chairs know and the council members know, in the back is summaries of all the testimony at the hearing. So you can see what each organization asked for when they testified. So you can use that in your capital budget, I guess, priorities and the council members.
And we also have hard copies.
Our hearing is Monday, I think the
Gene?
Yeah, I just, when I was looking at your book, page 124, which is under Department of Transportation, and it has in there recommendations, and I'm just a little concerned because the last sentence in there talks about additional pedestrian countdown, cross signals, and increased police presence at height. I mean, the police
Where
presence,
did you say?
124, it's under recommendations, it's the last sentence.
First paragraph.
It's the first paragraph, it says increased police presence on high traffic corridors. I mean, that's nice, but it shouldn't be on the DOT, it should be on the police department, or reference that we need additional police officers to accommodate this component.
Yep, that is, you're correct. I mean, we,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, technically, yes.
Yeah.
We put it into
We
DOT.
want it, but
Yeah.
should we reference that, that's why we need the extra police?
Yeah, you're right. We
Okay.
just put it into that section just because it's related to transportation issues. But we do include the fatality report on page 125, kind of like as a reference to
Okay.
Annette?
Yes, the slide 18.
On page 18?
Yes.
Take a look.
You have 2016 and 2015, I believe there's an error there.
Yeah, is that the Queen South chart? Yeah, we have to fix it in the book.
Okay.
We noticed that earlier. But we had already gone
The
through.
book is fine, the book is right, it's
Yeah,
just the slide.
it's just the dates that's wrong. The numbers are correct.
No, well, it's different than the numbers in the book.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is the slide incorrect then? Let me take a look. Oh, it is. I'm sorry. We dropped in the wrong slide. But the numbers in the book is correct.
Yes.
Yes, numbers in the book is correct.
Keeping you on your toes, Richard.
Yeah, I know.
Keeping you on your toes. It's good.
Can you just give me this, I want to give this to my members of the board? Just want to make it correct.
Sliding.
I'm sorry, slide 18.
Yeah,
Yes.
but if you go on the book, it's the actual correct numbers.
The top, yes. That's the wrong year, the wrong, use the wrong part, the whole chart.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, we have to replace that. But the one in the book is correct.
Great, thank you.
Richard, I have a question.
Yes.
The ferry service,
Uh-huh.
we're looking to continue to expand ferry service. The borough, I know, the airport committee that I'm on, is encouraging Port Authority to provide ferry service from LaGuardia into Manhattan. Where in our budget would that lie for increasing ferry service?
So we couldn't really discern the ferry service
Okay.
as of yet because a lot of
Okay.
those funds are coming from not city side.
Okay.
But we are going to look into that more in depth because we had that issue last year. It was really hard to kind of figure out where that funding was actually being placed in the
Okay.
estimates and the supporting schedules. So we will try to explore that going forward in the executive budget once we get more accurate numbers.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Do you have any feel for how much revenue is generated in the Borough of Queens versus what comes back to the Borough of Queens? Because when I looked at all your slides and I looked through this book, it appears as we're being shortchanged as a borough. And as an individual who sees his property taxes
Uh-huh.
go up year after year after year, it's just appalling.
So 3 years ago, we tried to break down that data, and the data that we used was from Department of Finance, but it was broken down by borough for the collection of how much the property tax collection was for each property, I think it was. We just couldn't break it down. The file was immense, and our computers couldn't open it. It was like, you tried, and then it would slow down every time we scrolled once. And so we were hoping to reanalyze that data in the future, but we're hoping to use that as a mechanism of how much revenue we're getting, because the largest share of revenue, like 60 billion out of the 88 billion, is coming from property taxes, right? The other is really coming from like either tickets or other revenue sources, like
You've got income tax,
yeah, we've got,
and
well,
you've got portions of sales tax.
yeah, so.
That's collected, that
Yeah.
goes back to the
And
city.
there's like permits that gets like, so a large portion of that's complete. We're trying to figure out how to discern that information, but we haven't been able to in the past. But every year we do try to look at that again. But we'll keep trying.
Okay, thank you.
Betty?
Yeah, to that issue, you know, one of the things that we might be able to look at in the education budget, you know, we all know that the money that the lottery sends to the municipalities all around the state is done by formula in the state legislature. But once that money gets to the New York City school system, its share of that money, I think we need to look at what our borough, to the Resorts World, is contributing to the state funds. Because, when I look at it, it looks to me, if it came directly from Resorts World to New York City, we're funding probably close to 30% of what New York City receives, and that money is earned from this borough. There may be a way that we can work on the Department of Education. Okay, now what do you do with it after you get it?
We definitely explore that.
Okay,
Oh, okay, so, I just had two little questions. You said we should stress the priorities in our budget here?
yes, I was really mainly talking to the council members, but,
Okay.
but you should, you can tell me, what you mean for what you would like to see funded in the capital
Right,
budget.
I just have two things that are really, really sensitive at this time. And one would be the shared bike lane in the Capitol, and we were told to contact all our electeds and so forth. Now, the second one is senior services, like a senior center is been requested for a long time in our area. We only have one, the Bayside Senior Center on
RFPs, right? The city issues an RFP for all the different providers to respond to get funding for. So the senior centers RFP has not been reissued for a number of years now, and all of them are operating on one-year renewals. I think for the last 3 or 4 years, they've been working on one-year renewals, and no new groups are coming in, and all the old groups are just getting renewals upon renewals. And so that's why one of the recommendations we made was for the city to just reissue the RFP so that we can kind of reassess and reconfigure the needs across the city and the borough.
Okay, thank you.
Can we please very, very quickly, if you're representing an elected official starting on this side, can you just go around and stand up, say your name and your elected official's name?
Hi, my name is Evia Cardozo, and I work for Councilmember.
Stand drum.
My name is Yan Muniz. I'm working for Councilmember Barry Groganchi.
You got each end covered, that's fine.
Andres Villa with the Office of Councilmember Van Bringer. I'm Andrew Toronto from the State Senator Commerce Office.
Ronnie Croce, Councilmember Karen Cosgrove.
All right.
We have one more.
Kate Mooney for Councilmember Adrian Adams.
Is she?
Is that any? Was it? Oh, yeah. So I want to thank council members Denise Miller and Karen Kozlos, chair of the delegation, and of course Barry Grudenchik and council member Bob Holden for being here tonight as well. We do officially have a quorum. With the amendment that was brought up about the police officers and the
Yes.
wording that it coincides with each
And we'll
other.
also make some of the other inclusions that were brought up today into the final book, and then we'll email out and also print out extra copies here for the next board meeting.
And understanding that each community board's priorities are listed in the back under the testimony, so you see that it's all together in the back of the book as well with the organizations that testified at the hearing today. Is there a motion to approve the Queensborough Board Expense and Capital Priorities Fiscal Year 2019 preliminary budget with the amendments that we discussed? Betty Bratton?
Just because Richard and his team did such a great job.
There you go. Yes, it does.
I'll
Council?
second.
Wait, Council? Yes?
The council members have to abstain from voting because we vote on the overall budget.
Do we have a second?
I really wanted to vote, but.
Christine. So all in favor of the expense and capital priority, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
With the exception of the fire department.
So Chief Healthy is abstaining on the capital and expense budget for the fire department recommendations, and Dolores Orr is abstaining on the education that we discussed for expense and capital priorities. Everybody else is voting aye. The motion is carried, it is approved. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, again. Thank you. And to Richard, it's really great. Thank you, I appreciate it. March 12th, 5:30 p.m. is the next Queensborough Board meeting. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, council members, for joining us tonight.
PowerPoint? We have to make one change.
Dan Brown?
You want a hard copy? I could do a hard copy right now, because I'm not going to fix this until tomorrow.
I don't think we should share with anybody.